And in this house, the most dire, horrible events took place.
You are not content with the stories somebody's lives come. Be my victim.
Through watching scenes of violence, through watching scenes of transgression, through watching scenes of horror. There's an enormous amount of sort of abattoir of excess.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
I think I might have gone a little mad watching that movie. I don't know what the heck I saw, but I think I kind of liked it. How you doing, chat? How is everyone? I will drop us onto our regular stream screen for episode 102 of Double Feature Horror Show. I hope you've had a good week so far, and I hope this is a this film, it leaves me scrabbling desperately for an adjective. I'm not gonna lie. How the heck do I talk about this movie? How am I gonna go about it? I have a question for the person who nominated this film. I really do. I wonder, on some level, was this a test? Was this a troll? Was this film, Bloody Pit of Horror, offered as a chance for me to prove my horror film analysis acumen with a film that is referenced in precisely 0 of my books? Clive Barker, usually someone who's very happy to talk about homoeroticism, never mentions this movie. Our good, reliable, let me check, Ivan Butler, who covers most of my movies before 1968, did not go near this one. And there's an interesting reason why he didn't, probably. It's too late for the for Kim Newman and his nightmare movies. And of all books, of all the people to let me down, to absolutely sully themselves, my feminist film critic did not cover this movie in Men, Women and Chainsaws. I know. I'm let down. So I'm left with a very sparse plate from which to pick when I'm analysing this movie. And let me tell you something, folks, relevant to Ivan Butler. The BBFC do not even have this on their website. It's true. It's true. And the closest I can get to finding out why, and possibly why Ivan Butler, I'm not sure which, didn't cover it in his book, is that this film was apparently banned in Britain in 1967. That is apparently true, but I cannot find proof of this. It's not on the BBFC website, and they would usually have that on there. It would typically be in there, just say refused certificate and then allowed later. But it's just not mentioned on there. And I think it being banned is credible. My references say that this lost about 9 minutes when it was released in the US versus the original Italian cut. As you will know from being around here a while, the Italians, they had a much more relaxed approach to film censorship, common pattern. But we won't go too deep into that. I do not have a topic this week, folks. Okay. I've just seen the chat. Good John Gorris. Were you trolling me? Were you trolling me with this one? I need to know. I've got it in my notes that you recommended this one. If you were trolling me, bad luck. I had a good time with this film. I was bemused. I was confused. I didn't know what the heck was going on, but I end up liking it, you know? It's also a movie in which the whole damn plot is given away in the trailer. The whole movie. Seriously, it's in the trailer. They spoil who the Crimson Executioner is. Can you believe that? Look at the trailer. They just give it away in the first 10 seconds. It's shocking. Well, we'll get further into it. I want to say hi to all my regulars. I hope you're fine. I hope you managed the homework. This shouldn't have been too hard because it was just on YouTube. I think this film is so forgotten, kind of so passed over, as Joe might have noticed, that it's just, it's freely available on YouTube. No one cares. It's just up here. Usually, films of this era, yeah, you can get on BitChute, you can get on Odyssey, and those sites, obviously, I would never go to them. I buy legal copies every single time, as you're aware of. They will have them, even though it's getting a bit harder recently, so I'm told. But this is just up on YouTube. This is truly a bit of a forgotten gem. I'm glad to see that a few people like it. See, Mima, you're late. You're late, but did you do your homework? If you did your homework, Mima, it's all forgiven. That's all we need. Richard, here for Batman. Yet what? Am I wrong? Did this film have a Batman vibe or not? The Crimson Executioner really feels like he was just a little too hardcore to be alongside the Riddler, but gosh darn it, in terms of photography and style, I think it'd fit right in there. You know, now things are a little weird here tonight. Obviously, it's just me, of all people. We had a guest lined up, but I think we've had difficulty with the time zones, so we are down a guest. And unfortunately, my boy TCG, he's ill. He can't be here. The guy's been working so hard. He's worn himself out, as we all said he would. Often, TCG, he'll do a stream, and then he'll go straight into editing. He's a hardworking guy, and you should reward that hard work by going to his channel, checking the latest thing. Maybe there's a video of his that you've missed. You know, he has been putting them out. Or even better, go and tell a friend about our good friend, that crime guy. You know, help the guy out while he's feeling a little ill. Okay. So yeah, I'm just on my own tonight, and it's all right. We know that's we managed to get away with it when we covered Scream 6. So I feel like we can talk about this. It might be a little bit more interactive tonight. So if you've got questions, I think we can try and answer them as we cover this. Let's see. Questions about Gatsby. Gatsby has got a lap. Now, I thought he was going to sit behind me for the whole stream, as he often does on his blanket. But he's got access to a lap, so I do not have him. So just on my own, you know. Is Gatsby okay? Yeah, he's fine. He's just an old boy, basically. So he's been a bit whiny recently. His voice is a little off, but all he really wants, Richard, he just wants to be on someone's lap. That's all he wants in the world. You know? Okay. Let's do a little bit of the preamble, because I did have stuff that I wanted to say. For those of you who are members, you should be able to find that there are a whole bunch of unfortunately, I did not inflict this film on waifu, I don't know if John wants to come on. I don't know. I think we'll wing it. We'll be okay. John, if you're absolutely desperate, we can take a gamble. Let me know, and we can find some way of doing that. But I think I'll probably solo it. So here we go. Let's go. Yeah, members, you should have new emojis. Now, I don't know if I'll see them in StreamYards, but if you want to test that, I'll look in the YouTube back end. Tell you what, I'll go and see where I can find them, because I forget what they are, but I thought I would do something special for you folks and get you new emojis. Look, we'll do serious analysis as well. We do deep film analysis, but also we like little emojis. So if we're covering something of low quality that frankly we should know better than to touch with a barge pole, we do have a nice appropriate hate watch emoji. If anyone wants to try that, that's just hate watch. If you want to show your appreciation for any members of the British Board of Film Classification, we have a Furman emoji, which I'm particularly fond of. And if we are close to going way over our stream limit and invoking the wrath of Super Nanny, or maybe we're late to start, we could be both late and gay. We could be untimely and unheimlich, you know, it's possible. There's an emoji for that. It's just late. I'm going to see if anyone's using those, because I hope you do. I hope they show up okay. Has anyone tried those yet? Let me see in the back end. Where are my emojis? Oh, there they are. Yes. Oh, that looks beautiful. Look at little Connor there telling you not to hate watch. Oh, that's delightful. Okay, fantastic, fantastic. Makes me very happy. Do you reckon we'll get Connor back on now that he's an emoji on the channel? Oh, lovely. I should say on the BBFC front, by the way, I have recorded a new video. I've been editing it in fits and starts because it has been a heck of a busy week, but it's basically all edited. I think I just need to render it and upload it. So you guys will get a bit of a bonus tomorrow. There's a really weird bit of BBFC history I found. It's so good. It needed to be a video of its own. I've made it. It's going to come out tomorrow. I think you're going to love it. And also, what else do I want to shill? I want to shill about, Lambda. Lambda was our guest last week. We had a weird stream on a Friday because of scheduling, and we speed ran it. It was a discussion of the 1994 Frankenstein. It was a good time. And I wanted to do that because I was going on Lambda's stream or series of streams, Lambda Conversations, and I did that on, I should know this, shouldn't I? It was Tuesday. Like I say, busy week, very busy week, but yes, I was the first guest on his Tuesday stream, and I was talking about ways to criticize film, ways to analyze film. I got to talk about some new things that you haven't heard me talk about before. It was a really good conversation, honestly. We could have gone on for a lot longer, but it was short and sweet. And I think you might enjoy the other conversations on the night, so give them a go. Lambda's been doing a whole run of them. It's been very busy, so go and check them out. Lambda is a friend of the channel. He's a really good guy. And if you want to sort of hear me talk about things from a slightly different angle, then you can go on that conversation. I think you'll enjoy it. But with that said, you know, we're on YouTube. You know what to do. Like, subscribe. We'd love to see that like button just stuffed inside an Iron Maiden and impaled on many, many swords. And then get that subscribe button and just eyeball that subscribe button through a hidden eye hole behind a statue so you can see one of your henchmen come up and hit it with a mace. You know, all those things that the new Power and Control, Neil Mohan, wants us to do. So that will help a lot. You know how to do it. If you're watching on replay, welcome, and you can also do those things. I know that it's about half and half. People who watch you aren't subscribed, so you're already here. You might as well click the subscribe button. Anyway, I've gone on for a while. I should probably get onto the stuff. I think, Slim, is that a link for the Lambda conversations? I will, oh gosh, I will try and find that for you. I might struggle to do it now a bit, Slim, actually. But if you look for Lambda conversations, or you can find a link to it on my Twitter and on my community page, I tweeted out or sent out a link to the conversation, and I'm the first one on there, so it's the easiest one to find. Absolutely, Joe, very memorable, and yeah, Margaret, that's very interesting. That might not make sense to a lot of people, but as you know, we have a keen interest in the sadly departed, but not entirely innocent Blockbuster network. One of the weird things about them late in the day, once Antonioni had left them, I hope that was the name of the CEO. I get that wrong sometimes. Once their sort of big show business CEO left, eventually they were taken over by an Australian cable network, the Dish Network, of all things. And it didn't rescue them, but it gave Dish access to a whole load of stores. And eventually, when those shut down, the franchise stores carried on as Blockbuster. They were franchise stores that weren't part of the main corporation, but they continued paying about I think it was a 2% fee, 2% profit fee to Dish to keep using the name. It's weird history. It's probably a bit too niche for me to get into here, but that is intriguing. That is intriguing. Okay. Well, I've gone around the houses a bit, folks, here, so I should probably get into it, because obviously you are all absolutely desperate to hear talk of Massimo Pupillo. I'm very sorry, Italians. Bloody Pit of Horror, aka The Crimson Executioner, Il Bao Scaletto, from 1965. What a special film this was. This is one of those films that it's quite easy to go harsh on. It's quite easy to take the mick. This, I think, has been the subject of several kind of bad film club / riff tracks sort of things. I saw in the notes that a German version of kind of Mystery Science Theater 3000 covered this. And yeah, I can see why. It's got a very odd vibe. But I'm going to be honest, it kind of won me over. It won me over. So a little bit about this very special film. And I use this word special in many ways here. It is an Italian production, mostly financed, I believe, from what I can tell, by Americans. That's far from unusual. American companies could shove in a bit of money and get some distribution rights. It was a very cheap deal to get your hands on something that's usually quite hard to produce. As a result of all the American money, which is part of the giveaway that it's American money, is that one of the production companies credited is International Entertainment Corp. You've also got Ralph Zucker as a producer, as well as the Italian producer Francesco Merli. So it's got that kind of classic giallo thing, that it comes in with a certain amount of internationalism pre-packaged. As you can tell, folks, this is an Italian one. It is earlier than most of our giallo, and it does look a bit like it, but it doesn't have the fascinations that giallo does. when we say giallo, we don't just mean Italian horror film in the sort of late 60s, early 70s. There's a whole vibe to it. There's a whole certain set of fascinations a film should have. That's when we're talking about your sort of concealed killer, which, okay, this does, not particularly subtly, but it does have a mystery killer. We're talking generally a modern aesthetic, a bit of a murder mystery. That's what we would expect to see, and we don't really get this. We get this thing that feels very in between cinematic worlds or cinematic movements. Like, yes, this is an Italian international co-production, which makes you think giallo, but it's not set in anything contemporary. I should take that back. It's a contemporary story, but it's incredibly wrapped up in the old world. You know, they've set this in a castle. They're filming in a couple of castles. And all the visuals of the horror are very much based in Edgar Allan Poe. So that really strikes at the sort of 1950s, early 60s Roger Corman stuff. Bringing in that fascination of sort of Poe's settings of castles, of madness, of torture devices. Except they've taken all that and they've imbued it with this very distinctive, slightly manic energy, this slightly... I mean, I don't even want to say slightly, but let's just be honest, very exploitative stuff. This is very transparently a movie that wants to be commercially successful. It is giving you very early a whole bunch of attractive ladies, and it has got a very good reason for them to be constantly in a state of undress. And checking comments here. Yeah, apparently it's on Prime Video as well as YouTube, which helps. Let's see. Yeah, that is that's an interesting scene. It really is just giving you an excuse. I think I've got a couple of these ones where we do have it's just an excuse to see the girls looking a bit saucy, you know. Oh, that's the one I want to use. I saved them. I had my choice of images. I mean, I can show you that. Let's actually talk about this setup here, because I've talked about the production here. Basically, it's a genre exploitation pick that feels like it's a bit between worlds. It is kind of on that Roger Corman, Edgar Allan Poe gothic horror vibe, but it's moving into a new era where it is happy to be a lot more bloody, a lot sexier, a lot more exploitative. So we've got this here. I want to... By the way, how do we know that this went a bit too far for the day? How do we know that? I think I can show you quite clearly. All right, I'm going to show you stuff from two scenes. If I can find it. You know how this goes, folks. I save a lot of screen caps. I'm struggling with this. There we go. Right, so I want to show you number 10. No, I don't. I want to show you this. Okay, so we've got this. I don't know if this is as clear. So I want you to look at that. And then I want you to look at this image. So focus on the resolution. So the resolution of that versus the resolution of this. Can you see the quality difference there, folks? Can you see that? So look how lurid this is. Look how highly saturated it is. Look at that reduced resolution. And then I'll just go back to the other one. It's slightly more muted. You can't see that super well here, I'm afraid, but it was notably higher resolution when I watched it. Admittedly, I watched it on a smaller screen. Hopefully you can see the difference there. Okay, good. I'm seeing chat. You can see the difference. So you're going to know from watching these a few times when you see that kind of difference. When you see that kind of difference, it's a bit of a giveaway that something has been cut originally and it's just been reintroduced. So it's gone through probably different levels of processing, different levels of rendering, different levels of being adjusted for display. So you might have, say, this original, which has gone all the way through the process to be put out on a 35mm. I mean, that's probably ambitious, isn't it? Let's assume it's gone out on 35mm film. But they had scenes that were cut. They couldn't get past. I mean, apparently the whole film didn't get past in England. And so they had a whole load of material cut out that maybe was only on a locally broadcast tape copy. And so you just have this huge difference in picture quality, which is, it's quite shocking. If you remember, actually only 2 weeks ago when we covered The Wicker Man, you had that exact same thing. You had footage that we had from the original negatives, and then footage that we only had from a tape copy that had been provided to a TV station somewhere. And it looks jarringly different, full of noise, very different quality indeed. And you absolutely see that here. While I'm talking about the censorship here, actually, I want to talk about one scene in particular where it was so obvious to me. And I don't know if you guys caught this. I want to know. So it's after this bit. I mean, look at that picture quality. It's an inventive little setup there. I don't know if YouTube's going to be a fan of that, but you can see the picture quality. That was cut. That was obviously cut from cinematic release. So I'm looking for, right, number 13 is a screen cap I'm going for, folks. Probably want something a bit clearer. I know you can't see this on the back end. Okay, we're going to go for this again. Right. So in this scene, folks, what is happening is our wonderful, lovable rogue, the Crimson Executioner. Did you catch his name? It's a Crimson Executioner. I don't know if you heard him say Crimson Executioner, but that's his name. Crimson Executioner. That's who he is. He is the executioner. Who's Crimson? I don't know if you missed it, but that's important. He's a Crimson Executioner. He's run this poor woman through the cold water treatment, and now he's giving her the hot oil treatment. You know, now you can already see that the picture quality is different here. So this is when he is actively pouring the boiling oil down her. Okay. And I don't know if I want to risk playing it on stream, but she's screaming and saying something, no, it's too much, etc. You're insane. And then it cuts to a different shot where he's still doing this, but it's obscured by an arch in the dungeon. You can see her tied up, but you cannot see him actually pouring the oil on her. And the picture quality is suddenly good. So you know that was included in the cinematic release. And then what's really weird is the exact same audio that we heard in this shot I'm showing you now. It repeats. It's so weird. It's like, oh, okay. You probably lost the original audio for this slightly more extreme shot. So you literally just repeated it. And of course it was this is all dubbed as well, folks. As you know, whenever I show you anything Italian giallo, you're going to get a questionably dubbed version. Something I also forgot to mention, I mean, you folks know this already, but a lot of this is just American actors who are given a script in their own language. And then it was all dubbed over, you know? Even when they are speaking American on location, they go and redub it and it just looks weird. I can never get over it when I watch giallo. It always throws me off. It's a very endearing quality of the film. Also, hi Marie, good to see you. I don't think we don't always see you in a live stream, but glad you made it. Glad you made it. This is a very special film, Marie. It's a very special one we're covering tonight. Okay. Yeah, so looking at that, I can see like the censorship is very obvious in this one. You always have censorship problems from Italy. They were always quite far ahead of where the American and English market were. Often a bit too sexy for the Americans and way too violent for the English. But they end up, you know, getting their own appreciation. I should probably talk about, and we should also say the chap who will have banned this. I'm going to open this up, chat. Right, this is 1965. It comes to the UK in 1967. So who banned this movie? I'm going to leave that one open to you guys. I'm also very aware there's a delay, so I'm waiting it. I'm just, I'll give you a moment on that. But if anyone can tell me who will have banned this movie, I will be very impressed. And while I'm waiting for that to come in, we will actually talk about the plot, of course. You can watch it all. The plot is, well, have you seen Scooby-Doo? If any of you seen Scooby-Doo, it's kind of like that, but 15 rated, you know, that's what it would be. I'm just going to wait for, I'm waiting for that confirmation of who banned. All right. Just give me a second, folks. We've got it. Oh, we've got a guess of Mary Whitehouse. No, so it will be the it's the president of the BBFC at the time. I'm going to give you folks a little bit of time. One of my favorites. And while I wait for you to guess, I'm going to bring a guest on. Hello, just Interrogations. How are you doing, friend?
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you absolutely fine. Good to have you on, man.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm so sorry. I'm an idiot, and I don't know how I messed up the time zone difference. I was so proud of myself for being prepared and responsible, and I still messed it up. But here.
I don't think you messed up the time zones. I think our daylight saving system messed up the time zones because everyone in Britain has been feeling thrown off all week. We're only just recovering from losing the hour.
Yeah, I know that feeling well. Well, either way, sorry. Glad to be here.
You're absolutely grand. I'm just going to. I was waiting for chat to get a question, but I think we haven't got it. So I will put chat out of their misery, and then I want to ask you about your favorite horror movies before we go further. So, chat, if you're wondering, it's 1965. This came to the BBFC in 1967. So the person making the decision was John Trevelyan. You will have heard him mentioned many a time, one of the most influential people in the BBFC, and such a scourge of the Bond movies that they ended up naming a villain after him because they thought he was too harsh on them. But I like the idea of this. I can picture John Trevelyan. If you're not sure, he's every geography teacher you ever had condensed into one man. But with extra tweed. Picture him watching this movie, tutting. I love the visual of it. Anyway, Justin, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I think I had mentioned to you before. I put off watching the movie till this morning, because I wanted to be fresh. So now that I've gotten that taken care of, I slid in at the last moment. But I've been having a good morning. It definitely gave me a reason to get up and start going.
Yeah, I can't imagine starting my day with this movie, to be honest. It would wake me up, certainly.
Yeah, it absolutely. I was gonna say I'm full bore now. I'm ready to roll. It really was a good way to start the day. I gotta say, maybe I'll take that on in the future now. Watch an obscure horror movie to get things rolling in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, coffee's expensive, man, but this is just on YouTube.
That's what I mean. What more could you ask for? It's free. It's here. It's high enough quality to at least be able to tell what's going on.
Indeed. I just really realizing maybe I shouldn't have this specific screenshot on for extended periods.
I don't know. I mean, I think it pretty accurately conveys the tone.
Well, I'm spoiled for choice. I think maybe I'll choose my most Scooby-Doo screenshot. How about that?
Okay. Yeah, sure. There's plenty of that.
Yeah. So I want to ask, I'll ask about sort of your preference for horror movies more generally. But first, I want to know did you go on the same kind of journey with this film that I did, where I came in thinking, what the heck have I been watching? What is this? And then ended up kind of liking it.
Yeah, so I kind of went into it not expecting it to be a masterpiece. So I think I tried to set the bar fairly appropriately. And yeah, I got to say, it sort of took me a minute to get in, but I ended up actually pretty enjoying it. Like, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I'm not a connoisseur of, what did you say, Italian horror, I think it was?
Yeah, Italian
or Gallo or something. That was new to me. Okay, there you go. That's very Italian. But no, I definitely, I was kind of surprised a little bit. I enjoyed it. It kept me engaged at the very least. I'm just happy it wasn't like a slog where I kind of had to force my way through it,
Yeah, I mean, I like my horror, but if there's a genre that can make 80 minutes feel like an eternity, it's horror. You're in a bad horror movie, you just, oh man.
Well, I think it's just because such like an inherent aspect of the genre is, the drawing out of tension and the building of suspense and stuff. And that does take dedicated time. So if you're going for something like that and you miss the mark, all of that, potential just gets translated into like long-winded, drawn-out boredom. So it's like a very fine line that you kind of have to toe.
Oh, totally. I thought maybe actually something we should do before we even talk about your preference for horror is we should say who you are.
Oh.
So
yeah,
folks,
sure.
If you don't know, so just Interrogations, met him on TCG's community quiz.
Yep.
And a good time was had. And
yeah, absolutely.
Afterwards, we were just saying, I do this horror thing. If you like horror, and like, yeah, I like horror. And
yeah.
So I just pitched in any preferences, and you didn't say there were any preferences. So that's how you ended up with this one. But bless you, you're an absolute legend for coming on when it's this totally random thing. I would have thought a fair few people would have gone like,
I'm very open to things like that. Like when I started my channel and I started making videos and stuff, I did get to sort of indulge in the more serious like side of myself, but generally beyond like true crime and stuff, I'm a pretty like jovial, happy, jokey kind of person. So when it comes to just random whatever stuff, I'm on board, man. Like I didn't want to come across as just a serious, gritty all the time kind of thing, because I knew I couldn't keep that facade up forever if my entire like presence was going to be dictated by like monotone delivery and very dramatic pauses. And I just like, there's a time and place for that, and I do love that stuff, but Yeah, I'm open to whatever. That's why you're like, how about some weird Italian horror thing from '65? And I'm like, that'd be great.
Oh, fantastic.
Bring it on.
Well, it's the attitude I took, and it's turned out pretty darn well sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to go about stuff. Be open,
Yeah.
willing.
Yeah, we were I was just pitching this as it's a weird film. Like, it just comes out in terms of like genres and
Yeah.
where it would be in what's popular at the time. This feels like it's just between worlds. Like, it's
Yeah,
kind of gothic stuff that was Roger Corman stuff in the 50s and 60s, but it's much more hardcore. Like, this gives me like vibes of, I don't know, Scooby-Doo meets Saw, I described it as.
yeah, it definitely has, and I think a big part of that, I agree with that assessment. I think the music and like just kind of the plays a big part in that, because I think I wrote something down about how it does have like horror B movie or like classic. I don't know if it's just like the weird like theremin sounding synth noise or like the bongo drums that you hear, but it definitely has that kind of feel to it.
Yeah, there's a few scenes that you would think would be quite tense, and they're just playing that theremin, like,
Yeah,
chill
that
music.
weird, like especially the intro, I was digging it, and then when they did like their little photo shoot, the music was so weird and wacky, and like it was looped all out of time, and I was just like, it should be taking me out of it, and as far as being serious, it was, but it was making it more enjoyable, in my opinion. I was on board. That kind of won me over,
Yeah, okay, good
I
to
can
hear.
get behind this.
Yeah. So, like, aside from this, I mean, I love the willingness to try stuff. What would you say your kind of experience with the horror genre is? What are your favorites?
So, when it comes to horror movies, I've seen a majority of, honestly, classic horror movies and more modern ones, more contemporary ones, primarily in the context of like watching them with friends or with other people. Because I like horror, but I'm not like a horror dude. Like, I like the movies, I like a lot of the aesthetic, but I'm not diehard. So that's part of why, when you said, how about something weird and obscure, I was on board, because I have a couple that I enjoyed. The one that always stands out in my head is Jeepers Creepers, because
Oh,
so the first time I saw that movie, I went with my grandparents to a drive-in movie theater, and they were showing, I forget, it was something like, the first movie was like Shrek, the second one was Legally Blonde, and then the third one was Jeepers Creepers. And I was like, I don't know, 10, 12. And my grandparents were like, we paid for 3 movies. We're staying for 3 movies. We're watching all 3. And I think I just happened to see that movie in such a weird context. It left an impression for sure. Like, I could still describe like that creepy truck when it's first chasing him, and it just is stuck in my head.
Man, that is an interesting one. Like, I know
Yeah.
Jeepers Creepers, there are things outside of the film that make it very controversial, and a few people say they won't go near it. I've actually just thought, I put a poll in the chat. I want to know what chat thinks of this. I know the director is not a good person.
Yeah, I
But
remember
that
vaguely
is a good
seeing
movie.
something about that. I had never fully gone down the rabbit hole, but I'd caught enough context clues and seeing people talking about it that there was something iffy sort of associated with it.
Very,
But
very,
from what little
very
I've seen, the sentiment was, it was a typical debate, like still goes on now, of the art versus the artist, that whole thing.
Yeah, it's one of the more, I would say, extreme cases of art versus the artist. I mean, I found out about all that stuff way after I had watched the movie several times, and the
Right.
movie impresses me. I think it's a solid film.
Well, that's the
Um,
thing with that whole like idea. I've had several cases myself where, you know, you hear about something that happened outside of, you know, what the production or the project, and even if you're trying to be as sort of unswayed and unbiased as possible going in, there's just going to be an inherent kind of effect that it's going to have. But then I think of the times where I saw the work first, just as a standalone thing with no preconceived notion and no idea of the outside circumstances, and enjoyed it, and then later found out, and it just, I know that when you go into it, no matter how open you're trying to be with things, there's always going to be an inherent level of, I don't know, guilt maybe for enjoying it or something. But no, it's definitely, it has an effect.
It does. You know, they often also say about that movie that it falls apart once you see the creature, but I don't even go for that, to be honest. I think the creature holds up.
Yeah, it definitely, it held up for me.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to cover it. I know obviously there are issues with it, but I would love to go back and see that. That's a really good shout.
Well, and I think
people don't talk about it too much.
Yeah, and I just think as you have to go about it the right way, because if you just go like, if you go into it with this idea of like what happened outside should have absolutely zero bearing on how we view this project, that's not true either. But you know, you just got to preface it the right way and be like, this is where we're coming from, this is the approach we're taking. We know what happened, but let's try and at least evaluate the piece.
Yeah. I mean, you often end up, you have this conversation over like actually all realms of art, unfortunately. Jeepers Creepers is far from the only case. So yeah, it's an interesting one. What would you say is what's a horror that's just not worked for you? I actually maybe let me throw something specific out there.
Sure.
How do you feel about Midsummer? I'm just throwing like one of the more divisive ones out there. I'm just sort of interested in your take on it.
So, I have to be honest, I haven't seen like the entirety of that movie, but I have watched a lot of like synopses and like not synopses, like videos about it that like either reviewers have made or critics are made, and it's one of the movies that I think it was made by A25, right? The company that does all those like
they produced it.
those striking kind of movies.
Yeah,
and it seems like something that's up my alley. I have a bad habit of like hearing about a current good movie or game or whatever it is, and before I indulge in it for myself, I try to sort of see what the general consensus is. Not that I give it particularly, you know, an amount of weight, but I try to do a little bit of homework. And multiple times before, that sort of leads me to just full on like diving into all the critiques and reviews and that kind of stuff, almost to the point where I talk myself out of it. Like, well, now what's the point? Like, I already know everything about the movie. So, and I did it to myself. But it's one of those movies that's on that list where I watched like I think 4 or 5 different. This is what it means, and this is, you know, what the metaphors are, and this is blah blah blah. And I was just like, okay, well, I mean, now what's the point? But I know that people love that movie. I've seen a lot of people talk about sort of, but like I said, that company's known for doing stuff like that. I forget what some of their other ones are, but I know I've seen some of their movies. They didn't do Everything Everywhere All at Once, did they?
They did.
Was that them? Okay, that's
they
I thought
branched out a lot. They were a lot more on the horror side, and now they're trying sort of
branching out.
Yeah, like I get the feeling things like XXX and not the Vin Diesel one, the Ty West one, and what is it? Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. That feels to
Okay.
me like they're trying to be a bit more, I don't know, not the kind of hard to get, distant vibe,
Yeah.
ultra artistic, and they're going for something that's a lot more sort of zoomer and fun. Which
Yeah.
fair play, give it a go.
Lot less of like a leap of faith, because I know some of their movies, like you got to be willing to like invest and sort of take a journey, and the payoff might not happen until an hour in, an hour, like you won't even have all the pieces some of the time, so you got to put a lot of faith in a filmmaker or a production company when you have a movie like that. But I think they've earned it at this point, because Everything Everywhere won everything this past year, and I know that they have a lot of awards and well-reviewed movies to their name.
Yeah, I mean, you raise an interesting point. Like, you can go into an A24 movie and just I've been burnt doing that. I've been going
Right.
in thinking, I'm going to watch this film. I'm a patient film consumer. Okay,
Yeah.
the film that I'm particularly thinking of is called It Comes at Night. Can I check? You aren't like the world's biggest fan of that movie, are you?
No, it's another one that honestly I'm not even sure about. I have no opinion either way at this point.
Oh, thank goodness, I can savage it then.
Is it one of the ones that everyone loves and you're the one that doesn't?
Yeah, kind of. To be honest, a couple of the reviewers I like said very nice things about it, so I went into it and I was super patient. I was like, oh, this is atmospheric. This
Yeah.
Nothing happened. Nothing happened the entire movie. Oh, it drove me mad. Like, it's called It Comes at Night. I'm going to spoil it for you guys. It never comes. There is no it.
Was there at least night?
Okay, I'll give you this. There were nights.
Okay.
There was a diurnal time structure that
There you go.
followed ours. So there were nights, but nothing
All
came.
right,
And there
so
was
yeah.
no it.
And that's the thing is, you get burned by something like that, and in the future, you're not going to be as willing to go into it. I like to think I do the same thing. I try to be very patient. I try to be very open. But I've had the sort of effect too of, doing a little research beforehand play in my favor. I'm trying to think of when I know I've had movies before where the general consensus was, this isn't great. It's kind of whatever. And then I still decided to watch it for whatever reason. And I think because I had the bar set a little lower, like when I thought it turned out to be pretty good, it was exponentially like normally a movie that would have been a 6 maybe if I went in completely objectively. Like, it's an extra bonus point or two. Because if I'm expecting a 5 or a 4 and it comes out to a 7, that's that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, totally.
So it can go either way.
I think David Lynch films can be like that. That they can
Yeah.
be, and I don't have a way of saying this that doesn't sound pretentious, but like, this is something I went through of just struggling with them, finding them kind of interesting, but sort of you have to learn how to watch them. And
Yeah.
even given that, like, sometimes the way he makes his movies, sometimes he is just messing with you for fun.
Well, right.
But other times he is telling a story in his own way and building it around the emotions of the character rather than what actually happened in reality. And learning the trick of that, of understanding the film that way, kind of opens them up. And I think if you go into a film kind of prepped with that understanding, it might help.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of movies and directors where if you're familiar with their work or even certain genres or whatever, like if you know that it's someone who has a lot of sort of complex things going on and you know that you're going to have to try to piece some stuff together, try to weed out the red herrings and like try and figure out what's real, what it represents and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you definitely are going to have a better time than if you went into it just sort of expecting like a pretty bare bones slasher film or something, like, because you're kind of headed in with the idea of like, all right, just put the brain on cruise control, this will be a neat little thing to watch, and then off we go. So when all of a sudden you got to start taking notes, like, you're not going to be ready for it unless you started your day with Bloody Pit of Horror. Then you're going to be running just fine.
Yeah, indeed. Oh well, we should probably get back there. You know, I think I didn't even give a synopsis for this film. I talked about the production of it, and
Okay.
why there are some of the weird stylistic decisions. I don't know if you caught this, but this film was banned in Britain, which is
Oh,
yeah.
no, I didn't know that.
As far as I can tell. I mean, I have my stack of reference material. None of it
Sure.
talks about this film. The official, so the BBFC is our version of the MPAA,
Okay.
and it has no reference of it, which is weird.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
but I found a random reference that this was banned, and I can believe it. I can.
Well, yeah. I mean, if there's no mention, then yeah, absolutely. You would think there'd be something, but
Yeah, it's I mean, it's a lot for the people might think. Hang on, what? Why would this be? It's not that bad, and it's
Yeah.
not that bad today. But this is a lot for the 1960s.
Yeah, you got to kind of put yourself at that point in time. I could definitely see it. Yeah, by today's standards, PG-13. But yeah, it's I could definitely see that. I know there was all kinds of, weird, prevented, banned, different kinds of films and movies and stuff. And sometimes there's little arbitrary rules, or I know nudity was the biggest deal ever in any sort of like salacious activity. Definitely threw up a flag against you.
Oh yeah, it's something we've had fun charting here. I've done a whole series on the history of film censorship. Definitely not
Yeah.
entirely to troll the audience. In fact, tonight was going to be a brief overview of post-1980s German censorship, but my regular
you go.
co-host is ill, and
Okay.
I'd hate him to miss out,
Yeah.
How gutted would you be if you missed out on that? So
Oh,
that's
I'm not going to miss out. I'll be there. I'll be listening.
yeah.
No, it's, yeah.
I
I'm
am
sure there's plenty to work with in that area. I know, just looking at the different countries, different reasons, different levels of severity and restriction. I'm sure it's all over the place. I bet it's really interesting.
yeah. I mean, for all the jokes aside, genuinely, I think it is. It tells you a lot about culture at the time, concerns at the
Yeah.
time, and it affects the films that you saw. It's
Yeah, absolutely.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do like to delve in that. It tells you a lot about things, but we should return to Bloody Pit
Okay,
of Horror,
yes.
which I was describing as somewhere between Scooby-Doo and Saw, something like Jean-Paul Gaultier meets Edgar Allan Poe. It is
Okay.
the brief story, folks, if you didn't manage your horror homework, is that a group of, I mean, they describe
This is going to be
themselves
good because I've seen it and I wasn't 100% on. So I'm going to be paying attention. I have all my notes, but I know I missed stuff too.
Yeah, I was torn over whether they were film directors or publishers, and it seems they're publishers who are taking a load of photos to go on publicity shots for the author, Ritchie, who was a journalist, but now he's a horror writer.
Yes.
And
I remember that part.
Yeah. So they're taking a load of exotic photos in a gothic setting for his books. Is what I
So
gathered.
that's
why they're
what I
there.
got too. Did they ever say what kind of book they're like? I assume a spooky something.
Yes,
But
horror stories.
okay, all right. So I knew I missed. I was just like, it's gotta be. I was like,
I've
this
got a
can't
good
be
photo
self-help.
of
It
this.
won't be helpful at all.
Yeah, I've got a good photo of that.
Yeah.
This was
Yeah,
one
yeah,
of
yeah.
those elements that this started winning me over, just
Yeah.
because the vibe of them obviously not taking it seriously, knowing they're being a bit tacky, knowing that they're kind of hamming it up with sort of cheap fake gore and just being kind
Yeah,
of
they
camp
lean
and
into
hammy.
it.
They do.
Yeah.
They totally do. The guy saying he was a journalist, but journalist's too hard. Journalism is too
Yeah.
hard. I'm just going to do horror. It's cheap and easy. I thought, oh, you know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. See, I agree. I like stuff like that. Like, I think it can be done well, but if you only have the resources to make something that looks like a B movie, unless you are really nailing it, it's going to subtract from the majority of the film. So if you know that that's the hand you're dealt, I always say lean into it, play it. You know,
Oh,
that can be
totally.
your angle.
Yeah, totally. Just you could tie yourself in knots trying to shoot around it, or
Yeah,
or just go for it. Just go for it, and they do here,
embrace
and
it, man. Embrace it.
it ends up being knowingly campy, knowingly charming. I'm thinking of Ginger Snaps, where they did some really low budget stuff early on, and it was just kind of charming, and they
Yeah.
saved a whole load of money that way.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is if you can pull it off, or if you have something that's written well enough that you can still make it happen despite the quality of the visuals or whatever. I think that's even more of a testament to, the effort of the production company or whatever it is. If you can make it work and just tell a story well enough and like engagingly enough that it doesn't matter, then even better. Like, that's great. That's an accomplishment for sure.
Yeah, this was great. This was really fun.
Yeah.
There were these little details in it that I really enjoyed. In fact, this is a movie full of odd little details. Where's the other
Yeah.
one? Slim, you talked about this. There's something right at the start. I think I've got a screen cap of it because it cracked me up. Yes, got it. Okay. It's from the first scene set in the I guess medieval period. It wasn't specific.
The very beginning intro.
Yeah,
Yep.
this door, I hope you can see my mouse on screen.
Yep.
It's like obvious chipboard door.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Iron Maiden looks like suspiciously wooden.
Yeah. It's also got that thing of like everything is Technicolor, all the clothes are
Yeah.
like brand new. It just
Yeah, it clashes a little
Yeah.
bit. Like it looks like they tried to maybe make it look a little worn, but yeah, the Crimson Executioner outfit is pristine. Like,
Yeah.
so there's a little bit of a contrast there.
I was thinking like, oh, this is amateur hours, guys. But then what do they go and say? They're going through, it's just after the scene where we have that little skeleton on the floor there that I showed earlier.
Also great.
They go and say, what do you mean it's unoccupied? There's no dust anywhere. So they're
Yes.
just pointing out to you like, yeah.
Yes, and it was funny too. I was literally just about to write down, like, for an abandoned castle, this looks pretty clean and pretty pristine, and I was getting ready to do it, and then they caught me. Yeah, that was right after the skeleton, because I remember he says something along the lines of like, oh, these uninhabited castles, they all have the family skeleton. And I was like, oh yes, of course, how could I forget?
Yeah.
Typical abandoned castle, family skeleton.
I loved it. And unfortunately, they didn't have money for a large pair of trousers for this gentleman. Unfortunately, there were restrictions.
See, I think that's another kid. He looks like a literal cartoon Scooby-Doo henchman. Like, to a T. The tucked in, the khakis, the striped shirt, a little mustache.
So when I was looking this up, this kind of threw me off here. This
Okay.
film has been accused of being homophobic. and misogynist. And
What?
like, I mean,
Why?
I will get out my gay card right now and give this. I'm
The thumbs up?
absolving this. Yes, absolutely.
It's received the blessing. Awesome. No,
I
I did
wouldn't
it
have
say
even
why?
thought. Well, I was, this is kind of like what we talked about earlier, where you read something about the film in advance and it colors the way
Yeah.
you watch it. I was watching this,
Yeah.
waiting for something, terribly discriminatory to be said.
Yeah.
And I think it all comes down to the fact that our villain is ultimately a guy who's a super muscly, manly man who
Yes, he is.
thinks the women will corrupt him, and he just wants to live alone with his muscly henchmen.
Yeah,
like,
I
that
had to
it?
like watch that a couple times to like try and figure out what his motivation is. Like, because yeah, he was like, I'm forced to recede because women will corrupt my perfect body or something like that. It was weird.
It was, sometimes with this, you wonder if it's just the dub. Like,
Yeah, I
sometimes
was thinking that too.
Yeah, John Gore's absolutely homoerotic. I mean, I think that there is that in there, but I don't think it was. I think you really have to, like, this is 1960s Italy. If they wanted to say something about horrible, deviant degeneracy of the muscle boys, they could say it. Italy would not have censored that.
Oh yeah,
Britain wouldn't have
they
censored that.
definitely could have pulled it off if they wanted to. It could have been a lot worse. It
Yeah.
could have been way worse.
Yeah, they were not thinking that. Although there are signs of it. I mean, do you know?
I'm
the
sure.
Doctor Strangelove film. Do you know that one?
Yeah.
I thought little touches like this, like they have our main
Yeah.
man here in the Oriental robe. I thought was
Yeah, the
an
silk
interesting
robe.
touch.
Yeah. I see. I think that looks cool. I like the dark room, and I think in my notes I just referred to him as just silk robe for a while, because initially everyone looked kind of samey. It was a little tough to differentiate. I had to sort of work my way through it.
It's just like it's an odd little detail.
Yeah.
I don't know why they threw it in, but it's in there. I mean,
It
the
looks
theory
comfy.
I don't know. I see why you're going for that, Joe. I don't know. I mean, we've spotted things like that before. I'm thinking especially of Peeping Tom. We saw that kind of idea. Also, Village of the Damned, same year, 1960. We saw that stuff. I'm not sure about that here. I don't think there was any connection, especially as the guy's meant to be American. But
oh yeah, that's
don't
right.
think-
Because he dated the blonde lady before.
yeah, it's the random thing that he's dated her.
Yeah, which was really weird and out of nowhere. Again, I had to go back and be like, wait, what? She didn't recognize him?
Well, I think she did, and it's just that she lied about it. But
okay, was that it? Because yeah, because she was like, oh, I thought I recognized his voice, but now that I found this framed picture of myself, it's him.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's pretty definitive.
Yeah. I mean, so interesting thing about the guy, he's played by, I think it's Mickey Hargitay, who I think Mergit's actually said it there, went on to marry Jane Mansfield, so pretty famous, well-known, big looker of the time.
And father of Mariska Hargitay? That's the chick from, that's Law and Order SVU, if you've ever seen it.
No, I'm going to pull that up. Mariska
It's one of those shows, it's a crime drama that has like 1 million seasons. And I think, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure, because that's a unique name, that she's on Law and Order.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
She's gorgeous too.
She is. Oh, she looks
right?
great. But
She's
how is she
badass in
looking
that
a
show,
cape?
man. So there you go.
How is she in a cape? I'm going to try and blow that up a bit for people. Just if people are interested. I mean, I am out of touch with popular culture, so
I
that's
typically
usually.
am too. I just happen to know that one, so I'm proud of myself.
I
Normally,
can
yeah,
see the
I'm pretty out of the
relation.
loop.
I can see the relation. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
actually,
is random. So
yeah. How about
he,
it?
I think he was just, yeah, he was a muscly lad, and he got picked for the role. He was fairly amateur, but as anyone who is a fan of, say, the Japanese horror genre will know, it is not uncommon for you to get quite leading work in a foreign film market, or especially
I've heard
foreign
about that.
video game market.
Yeah.
You just be there. Famously in the Silent Hill series, no one really was a professional actor.
Yeah.
The lead guy is literally an Italian American that was just approached borderline randomly and asked if he wanted.
That's
Although,
awesome, though.
you
What
know,
a good way to.
I'm making Japan sound weird like that, but you know that is how we got the chap who played Alien.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, the alien in Alien. Chap,
Yeah.
maybe you'll remember. Was he an economist or a dentist? But he was a student sitting at a cafe, and a producer saw him and was like, "Bro, you are 7'2". Would you like a lot of money to dress in rubber?" And he didn't
Yeah.
run.
Yeah. I was gonna say an odd proposition, but I'm betting it worked out for him.
Yeah, I mean, he might have phrased it slightly differently. I've had trouble with that one, to be honest.
Yeah, but more or less.
Yeah, when it lands, it anyway. Let's keep it PG.
I
So
just wanted to say it was funny too that you were talking about Silent Hill. One of the first things that I wrote down, I think just after that opening scene, I said that the executioner himself kind of had like a Resident Evil or Dead Rising maybe kind of vibe to him. I don't know if it was just the executioner hood, but yeah, that was a little association that I made. So horror games, yay.
oh, my knowledge is limited, but oh my goodness, I absolutely love Silent Hill 2. I don't know Resident Evil though. I'm really weak on it. I've played 2 and 3, and then huge gap for the rest of the series.
Yeah,
So
I've played
do
like
they have
some of
that
them.
vibe?
I think it was just the way that he looked, and I could be misremembering something. I'm not super hardcore into him either, but I feel like in maybe 7, I know that I played through like the first half of that one. I feel like there was an executioner guy, maybe with a chainsaw, kind of just had that look to him. So maybe it was just a loose association with that. But yeah, they're good. I've heard the Resident Evil 4 remake that just came out is really good. I've been thinking about getting that.
My memory is that's the one where they kind of made a huge pivot on the series and just broke
Yeah.
formula, and it seems to be
Yeah,
quite
originally
popular.
under the GameCube. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
huge, I think. But yeah,
Sensible.
cool.
Oh, sorry. Eid, Servus, wie geht's? This is Bloody Pit of Horror from 1965. You can
Yes,
find
it
it on
is.
Prime or on YouTube in its entirety.
Which
It's
is very
pr-
nice, by the way.
it's
Like,
pretty
that was very
obscure.
convenient.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel very bad when I recommend anything that isn't easily locatable.
Yeah, behind a paywall or Prime or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, one of the beauties at the moment we're still covering a heck of. One of the big themes this year is we're doing horror anthologies, and
Okay.
we're still in the sort of we're going back to it next month, and we're still sort of in the 1950s. So we're covering.
Okay, you got some room.
Oh yeah, exactly. This is the stuff YouTube doesn't care about, so it's freely accessible.
Yeah. Nice though. It's very convenient.
Yeah, oh, it's a bit of a delight actually. It's all charming. I mean, I hesitate to call this charming, but
In its own way. I think that's fair.
yeah, it's even though it's centered on a guy just doing this quite manic torture,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel super sadistic. Does that sound weird to say?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like after the opening, which itself wasn't super sadistic or like, I mean, it gets a little gratuitous at times, but not so much with like the actual violence and gore and stuff like that. It's not too bad.
Yeah. I mean, the scenario, as we said, has an element of camp to it. It's the dubbing distances you from it somewhat. Some of the things may just be. I feel like some of the snarky stuff is just things added in by the dub that weren't in the original script, like fun.
Yeah, to spice it up a little bit.
Yeah,
like it didn't transfer quite 1-to-1, so they got to throw a little something extra in there.
Yeah,
That's like there was one part like when I think people like first started, the first guy died or whatever. I remember the editor was talking to two of the girls, and he was like, "I'll double your salary if you stay." She's like, "My life's not worth that." And he goes, "Triple it." Okay, I'll do it. Like, then me too from the other girl. Just the way that it's just double, no, triple. Okay, me too. Like, it was great.
Yeah. I mean, okay, folks, if you didn't do the horror homework, and you'll enjoy this. You've got to be in the right mood for this. I'd say watch this with friends, but you can have a good time. Don't expect this to be hereditary. But anyway, what happens is they go in, they're shooting this footage, getting photos for a horror novelist. Trust me, it makes sense. The castle owner allows them to stay in, but then they all start getting offed by the Crimson Executioner. And then even after one of them dies in a staging of a torture scene.
Yeah, they're very nonchalant about it.
Yeah, they're pretty chill.
Yeah. I think the word I used was unbothered. I was just like, they're pretty unbothered about this. Like, stuff happens. Got a job to do.
We feel bad about it, but we got the deadline.
Well, I thought that was funny because initially it's the editor suit guy who I thought was going to be the, like, we need to get this job done. It's worth human lives. Got to finish the project. And then the rest of them were all just like, yeah, okay. Like, they were just on board. It was fine. But then I noticed too, I think after the next one, when the next person gets picked off with the spider web, then all of a sudden everyone's just like, oh, we got to get out of here. And that's when they find out that they can and they're locked in. But like, I wrote that down too. I was like, well, they flipped pretty quick because they were wholly unbothered by the first one.
It is really weird how chill they are. I mean, I had it in my head that actually the business guy actually has a secret project, like this thing with the horror story, the horror books needing pictures doesn't make sense. So is he selling photos of real murder? No.
Yeah, is he doing like snuff stuff or something?
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. But I mean, par for the course. This scene too, the spider one, I think right after she's on the spider web, the guy's trying to dead fish flop underneath the tripwires to save her.
Yeah,
right there. Right there.
This woman just stands in the background doing nothing the whole scene.
Yep, being like, stop, be careful, your button. But so she dies. He gets up, I remember, and starts taking her down. I was initially wondering, why didn't that set off the trap then? It doesn't know she died. He gets her down. He triggers it manually with the spider, and you see the arrows go off. But I don't know if it was an error or if it was my copy or what. But there was the shot right before that of the guy with the arrow through his neck driving the car. And I didn't know where that came from. I thought it might have been out of order because he throws it on the thing, the arrow fires, and I figured like, oh, maybe missed or went outside or something and hit the guy, and that's why he's driving away with the arrow in his neck. I wasn't sure. It felt disjointed and weird. But again, that's not different from the rest of the movie, I guess. But yeah, I just have a great big OMG dead guy driving. Like, that was such a weird shot.
Yeah, it really is. I couldn't make sense of that. I thought ultimately that they just liked the visual of it.
Yeah, I was like, were the arrows from the trap pointed outside, or yeah, I figure they just really liked the shot of the dead dude, which went on way too long, and the car drove way too well. Like, the dead guy was a pretty good driver.
This is an 87-minute movie, of which I got 84 minutes in the cut I found. So, they need to. You noticed a fair bit of that. Just a few things went on a lot longer than it needed to. Like, this one, 3 minutes to crawl under the spider web.
Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff like that, man. I know the first time when he put the women on the spinny thing, like it was like another 3.5, 4 minute scene of just them getting spun around and nicked with the daggers and stuff. It went on for a long time.
Oh, that one. Yeah. Oh,
that whole sequence was a lot of drawn out, like, moaning, and I was like, I know what they're doing. It's fine. I get it. But yeah, it took a while, man.
What do you mean, Justin? It's just a torture device.
They're building tension. They're conveying emotion. It's not gratuitous fan service at all. It has a deeper meaning.
Japan could learn from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Tighten it up.
There's something interesting about this particular scene. Like, it is so elaborate, and
it's kind of like the turning point. Like, and I think they drove that home pretty well with the sudden shift. But yeah, it's sort of the switch from, now it's become a more, because just, with the nonchalance before this, I was just like, well, why should I be worried about them? They're not worried about them. Like, if they don't care, why should I? And then this definitely flipped it a little. I mean, it was still goofy as hell, but it sort of flipped the intention, I guess. So I bought into that side a little bit more after this scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very elaborate.
It's extremely elaborate, and without, like, not hating on this film, I was having a good time and realizing it doesn't want me to take it super seriously.
Yeah.
But there's something about the fact that they come in and discover her, and she drops the most she says in the entire film, this whole exposition dump for the scenario. Like, she's saying, all the arrows are pointed at me and they'll be triggered by the lines, and also there's this big spider and it's full of poison. I'm like, how do you know this? Did the Crimson Executioner just, like, give you that and just, like, make sure you got all the points down so you can tell them?
I was wondering about that too, because I was wondering, did he explain it as he was setting everything up? Because, like, she wasn't by herself for that long. Like, I know they walked away for a little bit, but yeah, she was just like, oh my god, I'm stuck in this web. Everything is interconnected. It is very intricate. The slightest touch from any angle will cause the... I was just like, damn, man, it was a whole explanation.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, and she's an interesting character as well.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if she was meant to be Chinese or Hawaiian, because she's wearing, and I might get this wrong, is it a kipao? It's not a cheongsam dress, but it's like let's say a traditional Chinese dress.
Yeah.
But then in this, it feels like it's kind of Hawaiian Pacific Islander.
Yeah, it's got like a luau vibe.
Yeah, that's it. And I wasn't sure what they were going for with her. She had a name that wasn't traditionally American. Let me just see if I can find
it was like I meant to write it down. I forgot. It was her name was like, yeah, it was something weird.
Yeah.
It was like, I forget what it was, but yeah, I went back and listened to it a couple of times. I was like, what did they like, Petunia or Tatunia or something like that?
Yeah.
It was weird.
I was trying to, because it's what they called her is not a name that I heard here.
Yeah, I had never heard Tatunia because I was like, are they saying Petunia? Because even that's a weird name. But no, it was something else. All right, cool. Sorry, Tatunia.
So with it, yeah, I thought I'd just try and capture the elaborateness of the scenario. And of course, the whole time, I know you, like me, were waiting to see this spider.
Yes.
And
yeah, they hyped it up.
They gave us a spider. So obviously, I have our spider.
Yeah.
Look at his little face.
Yeah.
I can't be mad at this film. I was just having
He's
a
just
good
a little
time.
guy.
He's still a guy. He doesn't even
I didn't even realize initially, like, it's supposed to be a quote-unquote real spooky spider, right? Like, it's not like a mechanical spider made by the executioner, right? Because I thought that was what it was at first, but I think it was just because of the image quality. I couldn't see the details initially.
It is just getting real.
Yep.
It's just a real massive poisonous spider. They lean on poison a lot, but that's not uncommon for this era. Like, you've got to how can I say, ration your blood in the 60s.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd rather it be like just poison with no external gory whatever than one of the movies where someone gets shot or stabbed or whatever and there's just nothing, because that always drove me nuts. But yeah, I'm cool with the poison. You know, without the poison we wouldn't have got the spider. So
yeah, all right, I'll move on from that particularly elaborate scene, which
Oh, and I just wanted to say, too, when he triggers the trap by throwing the big spider, that was just the way that it flatly, like, thunks under the wires. It flips over.
Yeah, let's see.
That's the lazy Susan of torture.
Yeah, you went for the Hawaiian as well. Yes, I thought so. Yeah, it's the thing of the spider is a big threat for ages. And then your man just, your man just then stops paying attention and just plucks it off and the trucks, and he just doesn't care.
He's like, I got to get her out of here. And yeah, no issue. Oh, and so with this scene too, with the spinny thing, did it show him capturing the rest of them? In between that, like, I know they were locked in, but it didn't show him like actively like getting them and locking them up on the torture stuff, right?
Yeah, it does just cut to that, and it does that.
Yeah,
it does that a lot here to sort of get around the logistics. And I don't know if there's a fight scene that they worked around. There's about 7 to 9 minutes missing. From even the US cut. So if some things seem a bit weird, it might be in that time where it just got cut out. And we have
I figured there had to be something like that.
Yeah. All right, just a second. So we should probably talk about what's gone on at this point, because we switch from I think the switch point, as you say, is the death of the character I feel really guilty for not knowing the name of, but we did listen out, and I wasn't sure. In fact, to be fair, I remember almost no one's name except Richie.
Yeah, I think there's a Raoul or something. I'm pretty sure I heard that name.
Our producer Ken Zucker is actually in there as Dermot, but I couldn't tell you who Dermot is.
Yeah, I think between Crimmy and Raoul, there's one, and Richie or whatever. Yeah, I missed a lot of it too. That's why everyone was Silk Robe or Spider Girl, or it just makes it easier.
Yeah, we move fairly swiftly past the stage of people just getting bumped off one by one,
Yeah.
which it does, and I'm very thankful, without long stalking sequences, which are
Yeah.
traditionally how a horror movie will make its way past 85 minutes if it doesn't know what to do.
Right. Yeah, I do appreciate the expediency. Like, not all the time. There's certainly times where it's drawn out. But yeah, as far as getting A to B, like this scene's a great example. Yeah, they do it pretty quick.
So this is after a pivotal point. So for the benefit of chat, how would you describe how would you describe what leads to this wonderful scene?
Like the device, the spinny thing.
I suppose the reveal of who the Crimson Executioner is, which is of course given away in the trailer for the movie straight away.
Yeah, I mean the word that I would use and that came to me first was confusing. Because, like I said, even now I don't fully grasp the motive. Like I get the vague like society bad idea, but yeah, it was. I mean, like some other stuff, it wasn't too drawn out, but it was a little. I feel like there was something missing, or maybe it was just me. But yeah, I mean, as far as that, because I initially, like when I saw that scene, I had a pretty good feeling that it was him, but I understand. But when they like caught him in the photo that they developed in the dark room, like. I thought maybe it was going to be a ghost, or it was going to be a ghost possessing him, which I don't think it is. I think he said that because they broke the seal when they showed up, when they locked him in there in the beginning, and they were like, your soul is trapped here forever. Don't break this seal. And then these doofuses show up and break it. He says in that reveal scene that, you know, now that his spirit has been unleashed, he will return and, you know, blah, 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 whatever. So I was trying to figure out, are they trying to imply that when they showed up, he was weird, but he was not the executioner? And then once they opened the coffin or the Iron Maiden, then he became it? But surely not, right? Like, surely he was already a fan of Crimmy and had this stuff ready to go. And I don't know if it gave him more power when they unleashed the seal or what the deal was. But yeah, it was very confusing and convoluted. I think I've pieced apart the main things, but there's still some gaps.
No, it's fair enough. It is a tricky one, because I felt they were baiting us with the supernatural thing a lot.
Yeah,
And then,
right?
and even at the end, I thought, you know, they're showing us the body, the corpse, the dummy of the original Crimson Executioner, and I thought, I've just been trained by movies from the 80s onwards. In fact, not even the 80s, the 70s onwards, to expect some kind of shadow of the Crimson Executioner to step by, at least a hint at a ghost.
Yeah,
And they
something.
didn't do it.
Something.
But you could say, does a spirit sort of engineer them coming there? It is a heck of a contrivance for the man's girlfriend to come back and
Yeah,
tempt.
that was the scene where I really started thinking like, okay, I feel like something is lost in translation here. Like or over embellished by the people doing the dub or something. Maybe it really was just written that way. I'm not sure, but I that was where I really got the feeling. I was like, okay, I think there's some like piece here. But I didn't think about that, but that's interesting though, that maybe like the spirit engineered it somehow for them to show up. Because when they first showed up, they were saying they didn't know if the castle was inhabited. Like, because what's his face? Uncle Terry had to climb the vines to get in.
Oh, Perry, the greatest athlete in the world.
Yeah, the best acrobat in the world. And then once he got bumped off, I was like, oh, gone too soon. The best athlete in the world. Gone.
It's a randomer, just like, yeah, just turn up at the castle. They might let you in. Give it a go.
Well, and they said too that like this wasn't the first castle, because at one point I think the blonde lady was talking to him about like, how long is this going to go on for? One castle's too scary, one castle's not scary enough, or something like that. So I'm like, this is at least the third castle.
I love that line so much. That cracked me up.
There's a lot of implication there. Because I was like, so they traveled several days to get here. Not only that, but this is not the first castle that I'm assuming, randomly showed up at. Because if they showed up at this one randomly, why would they call ahead to the others? Like, I admire the dedication. They said they traveled for days to get there.
You know, something I can't get together in my head, right, is our man's ultimate motivation. So if you're following, folks, the chap
Good
who
luck.
secluded himself in the castle, he was a muscle boy, a muscle man in Hollywood, who suddenly left because he felt that he was corrupted by the love of
he
women.
was? I didn't get that at all. I thought he was just like a normal guy, and he was just like, society's too bad. They're going to corrupt my perfect body, or whatever the hell he said.
Yeah,
so he left.
Says, people are weak, sinful, and I've clipped it because I'm putting it in. I'm going to put that in my new intro because the line is amazing.
Yeah,
I'm working on a new
it was
intro.
pretty good.
And yeah, so people are sinful, and they'll have purities that will corrupt my body, and I couldn't be led astray by women, etc. etc. So
the love of a woman would lead me astray, or something like that.
Yeah, so it's an interest. I was just trying to unpick that. I know we've seen a couple of interpretations of it. I was wondering if it was a Hollywood thing, but it's this paradox of, if the guy is working on kind of like, if the guy is like a narcissist, like he's all about his perfect body, why would he seclude himself where people wouldn't see him?
Yeah, I was sort of thinking about that too. Like, and that was why I figured there's probably some subtext or something that I wasn't getting. Because, he talks about, and now even more so, I didn't even realize that he was a bodybuilder or whatever. So that makes it even stranger.
Yeah, they said he was a muscle man, which was...
Okay.
I was like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like, he was a hunky guy. Okay, all right. He was like a model.
Yeah, and then he was just like, my body is so perfect, I must hide away from society, especially women. It's like,
yes.
Okay, that doesn't seem to track, but all right. Whatever you got to do, man.
Yeah, it's that motivation to sort of seclude. I was trying to unpick that because, like,
I mean, I guess like it could be implying
turns up at his door, right? Hollywood turns up to make this kind of tawdry smut, basically. This obvious, and the film is telling you, obviously, like, this is kind of smutty. You know, there's that really great
they
moment.
acknowledge that.
Yeah, that the camera guy is taking the shot of, I think her name is Susie, with the skeleton in the armor, and they're posed up, and then he like pulls down the shoulder, and she pulls it up, and then he pulls it down again. I thought that was kind of a cute moment in a montage that went on way too long. Yeah,
that was in the photo shoot one, right? With the wacky music.
Yes.
The Scooby-Doo ass background music.
That's, if you ever show this to anyone else, you just be like, you can just tap them at this point and be like, by the way, if you need the bathroom, this goes on
right
for
over
6 minutes. Like,
you got plenty of time.
You want a coffee? we're good. Like, what is it? Manos, the Hands of Fate. That's the famously bad one where it has about 9 minutes of driving on a country lane.
I think so.
Yeah,
because I know that name, and I'm assuming that's the only context I would know that in.
It has been suggested by the audience before. I have not gone for it. We've done Plan 9 already. Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Oh yeah,
we have standards.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's the good thing about being like, and I've been meaning to try to get more into it myself, but I think one of I mean, it could be true across the board, but I feel like with horror particularly, like if that's your jam, that's your genre, that's your thing, there is an abundance of stuff. And like we were saying earlier, beyond that, there's tons of stuff like this from 30, 40 years ago that not only is out there, but is free and accessible and easy to get a hold of. So I can imagine, it's like being a kid in a candy store, man.
Oh,
Oh yeah, this
really,
scene, this is good. The torture of icy waters or whatever. I
yeah.
thought he was going to be waterboarding her because it starts with like a tight shot up top on the thing,
Mm.
the faucet or whatever. And he was like, I invented this. And I was like, dude, you didn't invent waterboarding. But it wasn't waterboarding.
It just looks unpleasant, slightly.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That'd be cold, but
Well, in the next scene where he's torturing both of them, I think he has the other girl on the rack, right?
yeah,
At the
she's
same
on the
time.
rack, and then this. So, I mean, there's something like this woman gets icy cold, and then she gets the hot oil.
Yeah,
There's a bit of
because
contrast
it
there,
cut to her when it was showing him on the rack, and that was another scene that went on for a little bit, and she was like moaning and screaming. It cut to a shot of her, but it was from the back, so you couldn't see like her face. I didn't know if that was her screaming just from the icy water, or if it was just still the girl on the rack, and it was just reminding us like, hey, there's a scantily clad wet lady over here, just in case you forgot. And then cut back to the rack.
They
But it doesn't
mixed
seem
up.
that bad. Between the two, I'll take the icy water. But then the rest is bad.
Yeah, I can't be mad. I mean, this was goofy. This had Adam West Batman vibes, but the guy
Yes.
is just going through with. He's just having such a good time.
He is. He's living
was
his best life, man. He really is.
Yeah. I couldn't be mad at it. It is one of those ones where I
This is
check.
peak Crimson Executioner right here.
Oh, who always refers to himself in the third person. You've got to.
Yes. Yes, of course. I call him Crimmy. We're close. Me and Crimmy.
I can't be mad at it. I mean, it's got the vibe of something like Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, where there's someone acting in a way that you just imagine the camera crew are like,
Yeah.
should we tell him? No, shh, let him do it. Let him do it.
Let him
Go
let
on.
him get it out.
Hey,
it worked.
he
man.
hasn't run out yet. He's still got the crazy. Shh, just go for it again, Mickey.
Just let it happen. Keep going, man. This is great.
You turned up to 11. Let's try 12. Oh, it's still going. So I can't be mad. I was just enjoying this at the time. The manic energy he brings. This wasn't grim. This was just a guy going around having a great time. It wasn't so convincing that it was unpleasant to watch.
Yeah, that's true. That's a fine line. And I know that a lot of the time, like, that's a good thing. That's what they're going for. But I think this is a great example of if they were trying to be 100% serious and 100% genuinely disturbing, it didn't work. So the way that they did it and leaned into it, I think was fantastic. Dude sold it 100%.
Yeah. Where do you stand on the sort of torture porn stuff? Like, is that
So
enjoyable or is that kind of over the line for you? I know like people are pretty split on that here. I'm kind of
honestly,
okay with it, but it really depends on
yeah.
the film.
Well, that's it. I think it's a case by case thing. Like, I feel like, well, I don't know. I mean, I have seen some that is just straight up torture porn. And it was still, if it's shot well and looks good enough, then I can at least appreciate it. But I prefer the kind of movies where there's an extra layer to it. Like I remember seeing this one movie a few years ago, and you might know which one I'm talking about, but I can't for the life of me remember what it was called. It was I forget exactly what got them there, but the whole point was they had these implants in the back of their heads that harvested adrenaline or something from their brain whenever they were in pain. So this group of people had to torture themselves and each other to reach a certain threshold of that drug that was being harvested to escape the house that they were trapped in. So it had plenty of gratuitous, like very vivid torture stuff, but I appreciated the fact that beyond that, there was the extra kind of plot point of the weird harvesting mechanism thing in their brain.
No,
I
I
can't
don't know
remember
it.
what that movie was, but it was cool. I mean,
Anyone?
90% of it. It was. I saw it a couple of years ago with one of my friends. I watched it over at his house, and it was genuinely. It had some tough moments to get through, man. But I think part of watching that with people is like you don't want to be the first to tap out. So
Yeah.
I made it through. It was good though. It was genuinely engaging. Like I've seen one or two just torture movies where I know the predominance is the vivid like imagery and stuff, but I don't know. I just need a little extra something to be there just to reasonably drive things forward. I think that helps.
Yeah, definitely. I think
But
there's,
I'm not opposed to it. Torture porn, bring it on. Great.
yeah, it's very divisive here, I think, but I would say that it's cool. Horror is meant to show things that are incredibly unpleasant. It's meant to
Right.
unchallenge you. But I think the Wes Craven rule is a good rule, which is you have to remember that when you're showing something truly unpleasant, it always has to be that it's happening to a real person.
Right.
And you shouldn't revel in it for its own sake. It should actually make you uncomfortable. It
Yeah.
should,
I
it
agree
should,
100%.
yeah. And I think
If
that's,
even if it's something light, I like for it to have some kind of purpose beyond just like I said, I think that's why I like that other one. The purpose wasn't just sadistic torture for the sake of torture. It was sadistic torture with an end goal, with a viable motivation behind it. But I know that there's sometimes where it's things are done well enough that you accept the fact that like, oh, this guy's just so demented that this is what he does and this is the entire point and it's sold well enough. But I think having some kind of motivation really helps sell it for me. It can still be 99% gratuitous violence, but little something.
I'd also say I'm hugely in favor of the look away option. Like if it goes so far that you look away, I think that's kind
Yeah,
of a win.
that means it
And
was effective.
yeah, you are totally entitled to look away, and I think that's good.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I
powerful.
totally do. And I
Um,
agree. I think that's a testament to it being done well. Because if it looks like someone cutting up a crash test dummy and squirting ketchup everywhere, like you said, it's not a real person. Even with suspension of disbelief, there's no connection, there's no stakes. So you're just like, all right, whatever. But yeah, if you genuinely like grimace or cringe or tense or something, that means they're doing it correctly.
yeah, I think that's a good way of phrasing it. In this, I am at no point ever feeling that anyone was really being hurt. I'm just
Right. Yeah.
I'm just enjoying the aesthetics. I'm enjoying the performance and
Yeah.
things like, oh, where is it? Let's get this up again. Let's risk the wrath of the YouTube CEO. I mean, the resolution is
always
low
fun.
enough. I think we're okay. This thing, as
Yeah,
you
that
say,
helps. Yes.
this
Yeah. This.
yeah, this is just we know what is going on here. This is not a real torture device. This is an
Yeah, it can't.
excuse
It's
to get
so
rid of it.
ineffective. It can't have been real.
I mean, possibly I'm overanalyzing, but the way he's gleefully like whacking the sword,
Yeah. Yeah.
given that the sword is often, a phallic symbol, and he's there just, whacking away, if we will.
Yeah.
Maybe
He
that's
was whacking away for
reading.
sure.
Maybe that's reading too much, but I think the directors, they know what they're in on the joke. They're having fun.
Yeah.
This is something.
That device was just weird, man. Because every time it would cut to him hitting one in, it didn't look like he was nudging it. Like it looked like he was full body smacking it as hard as he can, but then it would cut to the close up here, and it was like half an inch closer. It's just like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But it was engaging, all 4 minutes of it or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'll point out, like, just on the British side, this is they had to have their excuses at the time, right? To in Britain especially, they had to have their excuses to show nudity.
Yeah, they had to justify this shot.
By the way, so just I won't be offended. Chat knows this stuff. So if this is boring, just give me a subtle snore.
Oh,
and I'll be okay.
No, you're all good.
All right.
I'm enjoying this very much.
Okay, so this little detour, you are in, let's say, about 1951.
Okay.
So basically, just when we had a new president of our British Board of Film Censorship, John Trevelyan, comes in. Actually, I think he might have been 50. Was he 53? Fact check me, chat. Anyway, he comes in. You cannot show nudity. You cannot show. You can't show intercourse. It's not happening. No, that's for Sweden and France. And literally, that was a problem. Swedish and French films could show a lot more, and they would be distributed here. And so our
were they allowed to be distributed? Like they were like legally distributed, or like underground?
I mean, oh man, this is can of worms. But in short, we had about the worst way. Okay, you would think we would ban them, but we were very hesitant to actually ban anything. So the way we did it was we had the BBFC, which was effectively a vouchsafer for films. So films to be shown in a council-owned cinema would have to have a certificate from the BBFC, which is effectively saying this film is probably not going to get you prosecuted under the obscenity laws.
Okay, so it was like a legality thing, and it was just like case by case, movie by movie, theater by theater, or was it just applied to like certain films?
Just imagine the most inefficient, indirect way, and that's how we did it. So it doesn't apply nationwide. Councils could show a film that was not certified by the BBFC, but then they run a risk of prosecution for breach of the obscenity laws. Like this is so indirect. It's so workabout. And if you're thinking, well, hang on, didn't different councils have different rules? Yes, they did. All over the case. So there are plenty of films that were banned in one council and not banned in another.
Sounds like the YouTube policy of subject to change, case by case, open to interpretation. There's no set rules. It's just kind of a vibe. If we're cool with it, we're cool with it. If not, sorry, we're not.
Totally.
It's like, great.
Totally.
That makes it so easy to comply with the guidelines.
Yeah. So the basic premise was no filth. Please keep it clean.
Yeah.
So
come on, guys.
But let's say you and I wanted to see some filth. Are we going to go into a filth club? No, we're not. We're classier than that, you and I.
Yeah.
You're a classy gent. Exactly. So what we might go and do is see a documentary about a nudist colony.
Okay, I see. All right.
Maybe it might sound niche, but weirdly, there were a huge number of documentaries about nudist colonies that became very popular then, often from Sweden.
Hey. I'm sure, only for the educational value. That's why you see a documentary.
Precisely, yeah. In fact, if this will be for Brits, but folks, if you remember Carry On Camping, that opens with a documentary about a nudist colony. That's this exact thing.
They were just throwing documentaries about nudism in front of other stuff, just for education purposes?
Oh, yeah, for education. So one of the first things is, well, you still can't show nudity, and then Sweden sends them a film where there's someone fully nude in the distance. And the
Okay,
BBC
so
looks
it's like,
at it
where
and
do you draw the line?
oh, you draw the line a little bit further each time until, yeah, it's kind of weird. America gets the blame a lot for pushing the line, but that doesn't happen till later. It's French films, it's Swedish films that drove a lot of stuff in the
Oh
60s.
yeah, I'm
So,
sure.
yeah. Oh, so yeah, we got the nudist documentaries, and after that, there were marriage education films, which presented
Okay.
findings of research of how you can have a successful marriage.
Oh, okay.
And it was often a Swedish documentary that showed some things that husbands and wives can do that makes their marriage happy. And it's just a
Right.
documentary.
How to consummate your relationship in a
Yeah,
compliant way with the government and with Christ so that you're
yeah,
safe.
exactly.
We're
It's
going to show you
wholesome.
step by step exactly what you can do. These are the hottest things you're allowed to do without going to hell. We're going to spell it out for you. This is it.
Old friend. Oh, look who Jay has paid attention. Yes, these are white coaters. They're called white coaters because they would pay someone to come on in a white lab coat, like a doctor, and pretend to
Oh,
be a doctor, so introducing the
okay.
documentary. So Sean Cunningham, who made Friday the 13th, he made a few of these. And if you
Okay.
remember Taxi Driver, the pornographic
Yeah.
movie that Travis takes Betsy to, is one of these movies.
Oh,
So,
okay. All right. That is interesting though. Yeah, because I feel like, if for whatever reason, some more than others, but yeah, I feel like a lot of places have stuff like that where some ridiculously strict precedent is set and they're like, no wiggle room, these are the rules. And then someone comes along who managed to straddle the line just enough to be like, well, what about this? And then hopefully it gets nudged a little more in that direction. Then they straddle it a little more and they go, oh, how about this? And that's awesome though. I love stuff like that.
yeah.
That stuff is super interesting.
I'm glad you think so. I'm glad you think so. Yeah, I have fun with it. Like, this is culturally interesting. Like, you and it explains stuff like this. You might think, why is this here? And I'll tell you, it's because they wanted to show a little bit of bubbins. And in
Yep.
Britain, you couldn't do that. In America, you would struggle to do that. I'm
Yeah.
a bit weak on American laws. I'm trying to do some research on that now. I just don't know enough about the American system.
About like censorship and stuff. Because
Yeah,
our stuff's all over the place too, to be
yeah.
honest.
You've got the Hays Code, and then you've got the MPAA, and you've got pre-code stuff.
Yeah, between
So
movies, TV, and video games, the different levels and different kinds of censorships and restrictions, and yeah, it's just as convoluted. It's all so ridiculous.
yeah, I know. I want to look deep into it, but I just know that the American situation is going to be so much different. So I tend to avoid speaking about it so I don't get it wrong, but I will eventually do a series on it because I know it's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
it is. It always is. It's
how about
always
this
impressive.
how's this for a heckin' tangent? All on
Hey,
one shot.
it's a testament to the provocative nature of the film. It elicits a response from the viewer. That's what they were going for, and clearly they nailed it.
Absolutely. So we get our prolonged frenetic torture scene. We get Richie being the hero who comes back, takes on the Jean-Paul Gaultier-esque bodyguards. And
Yeah,
then,
that was a good fight.
yeah, there's an interesting it goes on so long.
Yeah, par for the course. But
Yeah.
yeah. I remember at one point he shoved the henchman or whatever off of him, and he did like sort of a backwards somersault kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, that was actually kind of athletic. Like, I mean, it's still not great, but I was just like, all right, so he's in it. I respect that. He's giving it his all.
It's a bit West
Pretty
Side
good for a
Story.
mindless Scooby-Doo henchman.
Yeah. There's also an interesting thing that he confronts the Crimson Executioner with the original and sort of spooks him. Like we can tear this apart on a strict sort of logic plotting.
Oh yeah.
Why would you? We could, but obviously this film is not going for that vibe.
Yeah.
Obviously not. It's just the idea
which I
that,
appreciate, because we'd be here all day if it's like, well, they wouldn't even go there if they didn't know if they could get in the castle. It's stupid. Like, you gotta have a healthy suspension of disbelief. You gotta go into it ready for that stuff.
100%. You've got to know when. This is not Cinema Sins. We are.
Yeah. Good Lord.
But yeah, that idea that you throw the guy off, the guy his whole thing is about perfection. He wants to embody the Crimson Executioner. So being confronted with the original, and he obviously feels threatened, it is a smart move. Like it destabilizes him psychologically.
Yeah.
It's kind of rich for a film like this, you know.
No, I agree. It very easily could have been another henchman fight. Like, yeah, I appreciate the fact that, you know, they went a little deeper with it.
Mm. And the fight is also, I thought, quite frenzied. Like that, I was a little worried for them. Like the risk, they're kicking over sort of boiling water. Like it was looking like they were actually at risk there.
Yeah.
Mm.
Almost as bad as the icy water on the back.
Yeah. But you know what I appreciated?
Putting themselves out there.
If you compare this to sort of a modern fight scene, how many cuts would you have had? You know? Like there'd have been cuts every 6 frames. This one, you just saw actors sort of going at it.
I mean, I agree. There's especially more and more, you see those scenes where there's so much shaking camera and motion blur and lens flare and rapid cuts, and you can't even tell what the hell's going on. It's become, you know, like the hallmark of straight to DVD or straight to streaming service, I guess, movies. You just be like, all right, so they didn't really splurge on a stunt team. They just got another editor in there to start cutting stuff.
Yeah, move it fast enough, cut around so no one knows what's going on. This one, it's obviously a long set.
Yeah.
And they just did long shots. Yeah, John, that's exactly it. This is a guy he's about perfection. He's gone away to embody perfection, to remove impurity, because he's got this ideal vision. And then for him to see the OG, he actually realizes instantly he's got this deep insecurity. He's always comparing himself to the Crimson Executioner original. So for that to show up, it just unravels him mentally, and he's destabilized. Like for a film that is quite camp and silly, that's a nice character point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I agree. Like I said, it definitely, it could have been, you know, some gratuitous torture scenes, a couple, you know, Star Trek level fights, and a little bit of fake blood. But no, there's definitely some effort and some, you know, actual talent that went into sort of putting this together. It might not have translated exactly as well as the original, but yeah, I there's definitely some of those.
I think there's also a little bit of the line, like, I wouldn't make too much of the analysis, but your final girl, as it were, is the own. Like, she's not a final girl because she doesn't go and take out the villain, but it is the most modestly dressed girl who survives. And I wonder if that's like laying the groundwork for what would come to be a bit of a trope.
Yeah. No, that I didn't even think about that, but yeah, you're right. Comparatively, it's very reserved.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hesitant to say it because this is one of those things where we are reaching back. Oh, shall we do some quick maths? What is it? 60 years.
Yeah.
We're going 60 years back in Italy. You know, this is
yeah, little out of my element.
You have that a lot. We don't cover as many foreign films as I think, should for interest. And that's because I have to do that much more research to try and work out what's going on.
Oh yeah, it's a whole
and
extra layer of access.
Yeah,
Even
there's
just translating stuff is a significant barrier, and it creates an even greater possibility of stuff kind of falling through the cracks, or just, you know, not having an English language equivalent or whatever.
yeah. Or here's a good example. Like, oh wait, no, I used this example in a conversation on Tuesday with someone. Folks, if you listen to my Lambda Conversations thing, forgive the repeat here, but in Pulp Fiction, there's a reference to a character being like characters coming from Inglewood, and I had no idea what the heck. Like, what is it
Yeah.
about Inglewood? What does that mean? Is that a fancy area? Is it a dangerous area? Is it is it like an Italian
Yeah.
diaspora? Is it like a Chinatown? What's Inglewood? And people just
Yeah.
say it expecting you to know. And we have to
Yeah,
look
I
it up.
can imagine.
Like if
Yeah.
I were to say to you, like, someone got a thing, oh, they tend to shop more at Morrison's than Waitrose.
Yeah, contextually I can tell it's a store. Beyond that, I got nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
I totally see what you mean.
Yeah, and when we throw in like a film coming from Japan in the 70s, it's like, I know I'm not going to pick up on lots of subtle things like that.
Yeah, it does kind of, you know, take a layer away. Like I was watching something on YouTube, and the host was a British dude, and he made some joke about, like, you know, that's why so and so's from Rotherham, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, it seems like a negative, but I don't know in what way is that negative. It seems like a jab, but yeah, you just kind of miss stuff like that.
Rotherham has got some very negative connotations, but I'll leave you to Google that in your own time.
Yeah, I got the feeling that it probably wasn't like Dubai. Like,
no.
Call it a hunch.
Yeah. So, you know, we've ended up basically at the end of the film with an unlikely hero. I will say, you know, for all the fun, I did struggle to distinguish the characters. I mean, it makes sense that it's Richie, because he's about the only one who seems to have done. He's kind of got his journey in a way. Like he was the journalist, but he gave it up for something easy, and he's had to do something hard. And I think it's turning him around. Yeah.
There's definitely a little more to him. I had trouble kind of distinguishing, especially like the earlier characters. It could be a little tough sometimes.
Yeah. It's, I mean, afraid it kind of goes along with the territory, especially, let's say, the Friday the 13th are, you know, they're all a little disposable for me. I don't tend to bother with the character names.
Yeah, and that's, again, it's just another thing about expectations. Like, you know, if especially in a horror movie, if you're going to get attached to someone, you better give me a pretty good reason. Otherwise, especially if, you know, they don't have a lot of dialogue for the first couple of minutes, you can tell they're just kind of a background character.
Yeah,
it's like, you know, I don't think you're going to make it, buddy.
It's rough. I mean, there's 10 of them. That's a lot.
Yeah.
There's 10 to track. That's even though they're given quite broad characterization at the start, it's like, it's still, that's a lot to track. And the chaps look quite similar as well for me. So that's,
I'm 100% with you. The only reason I could tell her apart was because she had blonde hair the whole time. And I was just like, okay, so that's a different human being. And then Tatunia.
Oh, all right.
Never forget Tatunia.
She had the most creative death by far.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I thought I expected her to get shot. I was waiting for her to be shot by about 40 arrows, and then it's just she's bitten
Yeah, it was
off
only
screen.
one. Yeah, she's bitten off screen, and then when he does set off the trap, it's just like one. Because she made it very clear in her long-winded explanation that arrows would come from everywhere, and they did not.
I guess that was an expensive prop. You don't want to set up 40 arrows if you don't have to. Oh, and of course, this is a trivial point. We've given some high-end analysis in here. We talked deeply about cinema history, so I can get away with the fact that I just laughed when it got to this. I was just,
yeah.
How's the film?
It's fine. Now, see that, like we had said before, that would be a perfect moment for the last-minute question mark to come in and be like, fine. The last hint.
Yeah.
It certainly was fine. I agree.
It was indeed. I mean, honestly, I wasn't sure going in. I mean, this comes from a good guy. John Gorris recommended it. And I like to, after I've done the sort of all the on-theme coverage for the month, we like to do like something to break it up a bit, and audience requests are fun.
Yeah.
I was not sure what we were getting in this one.
Neither was I. I was going in blind.
I went, going in on this one, the opening scene, I was like, okay, a little cheesy. The music's good. I like the music.
Yeah.
The acting, not sure about that, but the music's powerful. And then
I agree.
Then I got the sort of, the acting is ropey vibe, but it ended up, it just won me over. I think this is I don't know how you feel about this, but I think if you were doing a Halloween watch, like a double bill or even a triple bill, this would be a good film for that. Have company round and sort of get in on a good vibe.
Especially as like kind of a palate cleanser. If you're, if you start or you're going to finish with something a little heavier or particularly heavy. Yeah, something like this, kind of, like you said, it's perfect for like, hey, if you want to hit the bathroom, like, make it last less than 10 minutes, you won't miss much. So you can have that as sort of a buffer, Yeah,
I agree, though. Palate cleanser is the perfect description. Something heavy hitting, follow it up with this.
Follow it up with something fine.
Totally. Well, at this point in the show, we've covered everything. So I'd say probably, if you're okay with it, shall we move into just give a closing thoughts summary, and then your own score. We for reasons buried in the mist of time, our scoring system is out of 12 burgers.
Okay.
It made sense a long time ago. So we've got the first one in already. I'll just get the scores up as people give them in.
Okay.
So like that's very generous, Slim, but I can understand it wins you over. So if you like to go ahead with closing thoughts and your score, that'd be cool.
So I would say, like we sort of just touched upon, I went into it pretty blind, but pretty open. I mean, I was kind of ready for whatever was going to happen. It started off, I thought maybe it was just going to be a bad horror movie, and it was just going to be an hour and a half of like, wow, that's so dumb, ha ha ha, which has its time and place. But I was pleasantly surprised. It had plenty of wacky stuff, and it, like, I think the Scooby-Doo with a hint of Saw that you had said is pretty appropriate. I think as long as you go into it with an open mind and you haven't set the bar particularly high, or honestly even above maybe waist level, you're going to have a good time. I enjoyed it, and unironically, not jokingly, it was fine. So if it's out of 12, I feel okay to 6. Half, I think it's okay. There's certainly much worse out there. There's much better. But yeah, I'd say right down the middle. 6 out of 12 burgers.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's fair. It would. So for me, yeah, I went in also completely unsure. I was sort of intrigued because Italy pre late 60s is kind of new for me. I don't know the area well. That for me is like Mario Bava, and I don't know Bava super well. So I was thinking, okay, this is interesting territory. It threw me a whole load of camp that ultimately won me over. And I think the enjoyment of it ultimately is going to end up on seeing it under the right conditions in the right mood.
Yep.
Don't go in expecting a big scare. Go in for something that's kind of cozy. I think calling it a cozy vibe is good. It makes me
Yeah.
really think of like a Vincent Price movie. You're like, yeah, we've got a skeleton around, but there's no sadism. There's no bad
Yeah.
vibes. There's no really genuinely feeling bad that someone is suffering. It's all
Yeah.
a bit pantomimey.
Right. It's not trying to make you look away. It's
Yeah.
just trying to be enjoyable to the eyes. It's fun to look at, it's fun to watch. I agree.
Yeah. So that keeps it good. What would have killed this and made it painful would be if it was trying to take itself really seriously, if it
100%.
had leaned really far in on sleaziness.
Yeah.
It drew the line at a nice place. Obviously, there's a bit of titillation, and I emphasize the first syllable of that, but
Absolutely.
it did not go over the line into something kind of uncomfortable, like, the start of The Breakfast Club with the upskirt shot, where that is just
Right.
a bit
Yeah.
gross. I mean, obviously, your mileage may vary. Just for me, it was a bit much.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Yeah, and violence wasn't too bad. So it ends up being cozy, good fun, really feeling like an early Vincent Price movie, feeling like The House of Haunted Hill. That's it. William Castle. He was the guy I was going to recommend. It feels like a William Castle movie. Basically, you might go in for a bit of a jump, but no one's trying to give you nightmares. No one's trying to shake you up, and you all know what you're getting here.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
not trying to
thought
embed itself in your psyche. It's no Jeepers Creepers.
precisely, yeah, precisely. It's just a good time. I'd say
Yep.
it's oh yes, Carry On meets Marquis de Sade. Yes, Joe. Yes, good shout. I mean, I think it's really interesting. It references Marquis de Sade instead of Edgar Allan Poe at the start, but so. Score, I'm torn. You've gone with a 6, which I feel is like, yeah, didn't hate it, but
Yeah,
didn't love it. Fine.
could
I
be
think it's
better,
fair.
could be worse.
I'm seeing 9s, I'm seeing 8s, 7s, 8s, 4, 3, 8. I honestly, because it ended up winning me over so much more, and it had that camp vibe and interest. And and that's the other thing. It didn't massively waste my time. If it had tried to
Yeah,
drag itself out to like 95 minutes,
yeah,
there
yeah,
were
I agree.
there were already a few scenes that were on a little bit too long, but
Yeah,
I'll leave it. Don't know if I got this one yet, Mima, so I don't want to miss that off. Yeah, 6 is fine. Yeah. I it doesn't have like the heritage that would make me upvote it a bit more. So maybe I could go with a 6, to be honest. A 6. No,
okay,
I think a
yeah.
7. I'll go for a 7 because there was a bit more effort
Hey,
put into it.
there was.
Yeah, it wasn't just like a campground. Shooting it in a castle, it's a bit more interest. It's a bit more effort. You want to reward that, and just your Crimson Executioner is absolute meme fodder. It deserves an extra burger
Yeah,
just for the fact that he gave me a quote I can put in the new intro.
yeah,
And very few people are going to get that, but you folk are going to be along it. You're going to hear that line, and you're going to know, and you're
I
going to
was here
feel
to witness
elite.
it.
witness me. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Yeah. We took a gamble on this one, but I feel like we won.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So massive thanks, Justin. And
Of course. Sorry again for being late.
you're absolutely
But-
fine. You know, do you want to do a quick shill before we end up?
Sure. So my channel is on YouTube. It's just Interrogations. It's clever because my name is Justin, so look at me. But yeah, I do true crime stuff. I mostly do analysis and breakdowns of criminal interrogations, and I occasionally just do some case coverage stuff. But yeah, if that sounds like something that's up your alley, check it out. Be happy to have you.
Yeah. And folks, not just because he's on, highly recommended. If you like a true crime, it's an angle I think you won't have seen before. Long form coverage. You know we love attention to detail, good atmosphere, and he didn't say it, but tight editing. So yeah,
Thank you.
you're very
Thank
welcome.
you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, take your time with it and enjoy the full run. They are good. They are very good stuff. And of course, that crime guy, he's ill today. Otherwise, he would have been here.
Yes.
So if you haven't caught up with him, go to his channel, check his stuff up. The guy works hard, and you know his editing is gold. And you know he's got a fancy new intro. I don't know who did that. Some random person probably put that together. But go and tell him how nice his intro looks. All right. Well, folks, you've heard of the shilling. There's Lambda Conversations. If you want to hear me talk about stuff that's a little unusual, I ended up talking about everything everywhere all at once at one point. It's an
There we
hour-long
go.
conversation. It's very tight. And that's on the Tuesday stream. A link was posted earlier in the thread, and it's on my community page. Otherwise, on Sunday, I am coming back with a bonus stream. It's going to be a bit unusual, but we've got returning guests, Pharaoh and Last Things, and we're talking about a forgotten, basically pushed under the carpet, dark comedy from the 90s called The Last Supper. Very appropriate around Easter time. We're going to have fun. It'll be a quick one, but it's a film from the 90s about the culture war, and we're going to see how well that has aged. It's very weird to watch it now, let me tell you. Also features a young Cameron Diaz and
Ooh.
yeah, a weirdly like buff Ron Perlman. It's an odd film.
Oh, there you go. That's a win-win.
Yeah. Yeah. So you might have trouble tracking it down, but give it a go. That's going to be Sunday, 9 p.m. That's everything for me. Links to Just Interrogations channel is in the description. So TCGs, we've been watching Bloody Pit of Horror. It's been fantastic talking with you, Justin. Thank you so much.
You as well. Thank you very much.
All right, wonderful. Well, that is everything. And I am going to... Oh, sorry. Good point. Good point. Thank you, Holy Holy. Sorry, long week. I have been forgetting the homework. So there's Last Supper from 1995, if you haven't seen that already. Beyond that, we are going back to 1950s stuff, and 1950s horror anthologies, and I think we're taking a diversion into Alfred Hitchcock Presents. But I have not finalized the selections yet. Mergu, you and I need to agree what the episode selections are going to be. If we have not decided, tell you what, folks, if we have not decided, something we are absolutely doing in April is the original Tales from the Crypt movie with one of the very early Killer Santa Claus movies. Oh yeah, sorry, stories. So if in doubt, if we haven't decided on the Alfred Hitchcock stuff, then go for Tales from the Crypt. I think it's 1959. I could be wrong. But it's the first Tales from the Crypt movie. So I will confirm on Twitter, I will confirm on YouTube, and you will know. But that is all from me for now. I hope you've had a fantastic week. I hope you're looking forward to a wonderful weekend. And
Thanks
I'll
for being
sign
here,
off.
everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, y'all.